amazing, mind-blowing ideas right now. And y'all are going to have to just accept that I have done homework in certain directions. No, this is like super galactic. So I'm streaming in a couple different environments, and one is going to be with us after January 19. That's all I want to say about that. So the concept is, well, let me just read a little bit of this paper because it's incredible. This paper is not a physics paper, okay? This paper is about the notion of form in Taoist alchemy. And what's happening is I'm having a consistent experience of having done what I thought was a very clever to work around some things with, like, I don't do math. All of the physics that I'm in is so fully theoretical that, like, I'm just modeling it with art and movement and vocabulary. So there is a concept in Chinese medicine called a Shen, Shen. Yes, creative translator. Shen they animate our organs from just like an acupuncture perspective. And I created a little booklet so that I could communicate what the frick is a Shen. And I made my own Shen to do that. And then it was like, I'm just going to make a whole category of entities, of objects from an object-oriented perspective called Shen, because then I can use it linguistically, psycholinguistically. My cats are having a meltdown. When are they not? Okay. And I'm being very honest about the psycholinguistics of this model, neuroaffective somatics, because if you look at this is a matrix version of the I Ching. And this is a way to envision how our connective tissue functions in dimensional space, in the third dimension, the one that we live in, like the actual physical somatic one. And so these Shen, these amazing magical mysticals, okay, they're just magical mysticals in our organs. Like, this is Po, this is my variation of Po. When you and I breathe, breath is kind of like a positive and negative charge. So the Po, when we breathe in, Po brings in or adds to the environment of our liver, no, our lungs, pardon me, our lungs. But from a sensory perspective, that is related to our olfactory nerves specifically. It's related to the sense of smell, not the act of breathing. So all of these elements, so Shen so I created them as an object. In object-oriented programming, you just define an object. It's also something that we do in information science, because sometimes a data set has to like be the data set and it can't change. And so KDZ comes in and like puts a little cloth over it, a little cloth of logic, or like additional constraints or additional openings. And then those categories I can mess with from a psycho-emotional perspective, but also consciousness and alchemy. And because, like, what else am I going to do? I'm not a jerk. I'm not going to make everybody have to experience the golden elixir the way that Mr. Jung told us is impossible. It's not impossible. So we are building dimensions with this statement by what Fabrizio Pregadio is the translator. I'm reaching out to him this week. Okay, so thank you. I'm very excited. It just consistently is his stuff that is, I'm just blown away. Okay. Let me look. Form, essence, noumena, and spirit. Form is explicitly said to be generated from essence. Essence and spirit are generated from the Tao. Form is generated from essence. Essence is not ether. It's not ether. Essence is what's possible. Essence is the totality of the functioning of the universe. The Tao is 0 point energy, or 0 dimensions, or so many higher dimensions we can't perceive it. And Daoism only counts to 3. It says the Tao creates 1, 1 becomes 2, 2 become 3, and then 3 give birth to the myriad things. So from nothing, from a void, yes, I actually I don't have a script or anything, but we just, oh my gosh, okay, it's very exciting. So from the void becomes 1. And I also have the Tao of physics here, okay? So we're going to have Fritjof Capra check my work, because I've been checking his. Is that why Tao is 3 is a magic number? Because we have 3 dimensions. So just from a practical perspective, if I want to plot information on a graph, on a chart, okay, so here's a point. These 2 lines, though, they don't create, they just create a surface. So surfaces, see, one of the things that happens with humans, okay, I know surfaces are not 2-dimensional. They are 3-dimensional, but sometimes we think they're 2D, okay? So if you're learning how to do the showing people things, which I have done a lot of, with this guy, Edward Tufte, who's one of the world's leading visualization experts in whatever that is. But anyway, you create a false axis, right? You create a z-axis, 1, 2, 3. Because if I want to show you 3 dimensions on a 2D, MJ, 100% of my design is based on him, what he taught me. Please come find me. Please join my Substack. I'm actually doing a workshop on fascia as biotensegrity, and Chinese medicine as shantegrity, because that's how much I love Tufte. Okay, so here's me showing you 3Ds, 3 dimensions. I have to fake it on a surface. So I think 3 is a magic number because it's the way that you get a family. It's how you have a generation, right? You need to have, if you're a reproducing organism that is not asexual, I don't know how that, if you need 2 creatures to create a generation, 1, 2, 3. Also, length, width, height. Also, when you look at brain scans as an example, we're very much not on, but when you look at brain scans are often, they're done straightforward. That's called the corona. Okay, they're done looking down, And from like a slice perspective this way, that's the sagittal. And then they slice them. That's the transverse. So our brains are contemplated through 3 lenses. And I will tell you that's because we are beings of 3 dimension. So what happens with dimensions? Okay. So the Tao is the whatever, WTF, who knows? Okay. The Tao becomes 1. 1 becomes 2. 2 becomes 3. 3 become the myriad things. The Tao becomes 1. 1 becomes 2. 2 becomes 3. I have to do extra math here, okay? So I'm just going to say all others. It's Fibonacci. It's the first part of Fibonacci that stays in primes. So once you get to 4, then we have space-time. Then we have something like mass or volume or other like qualities that you might be contemplating as it relates to the whole universe or a whole human or whatever. So in this text about the Golden Elixir, which is attaining enlightenment in Taoist alchemy, which I have experienced. I have not sought it. I just experienced it because of the physics. Listen to this. Jing is the source of everything that's provided with a form. Jing, that's our energy in our belly. That is energy contemplated as part of human. And I show it with neon yellow because it's like a perception, kind of a consciousness thing, but it resides in us. It's contemplated as part of the lowest part of us, the heaviest gravity. So if you've ever heard of a 3-body problem, here's the first body, Jing. Existence as a whole is born from an essence spontaneously produced from the Tao. As it relates to you and me, that's the fertilization of a zygote. That is very precisely the potential for growth. Fertilization of a zygote, germination in a seed, I don't know, having a measurement of what you're designing, an idea. Okay, the 1 in physics is called a string. I did not know that strings were 1-dimensional. Thank you so much, physics. So the form, who knows, essence is spontaneously produced, spontaneous. So that's like cells that do fusion and fission as well. So a zygote are epithelial cells, I think do cancer cells, do endometriotic, maybe. There's 8 different kinds of cells in our body that are, they just do spontaneous. The mitochondria in our cell, the powerhouse of the cell. Okay. Wow. So the Tao generates 1, 1 generates the 2. So the Tao generates the 1. Another way to contemplate the 1 is the totality of the universe, the whole thing. However big that is, we'll just make it a circle because circles are infinities. So as soon as you hit a circle, you have problems, you have issues. Okay, you have issues with like perception. You have issues with things like, how are these waves actually behaving? Are they staying in the system? Are they going through the system? Is this really a closed system? Is it an open system? Is this a loop? If it's a loop, is it open or a closed loop? Am I even able to perceive? There's all these questions, but we have we have a thing, we have a something. The outside of this in Daoism is called Wu Qi. Who knows? The energy of, it's like pre-heaven. Then we have the one. One gives rise to two, which, for the sake of convenience, is illustrated as, I'm doing it in blue. Hold on one sec. Here's my kitty cat, Darla. Gonna have a meltdown. Hi. One becomes two. Okay, well, so this would actually just be like this, okay? Two becomes three. Three become the myriad things. So the yin and the yang, from a plasma perspective, as much as I understand plasma physics, because I don't do math, okay? I only do geometry and alchemy. From a plasma perspective, this is magnetic plasma. From a soma perspective, from a body perspective, yin and yang map in humans to the soles of our feet initially, and very much the bottom of the perineum, saying, yeah, you exist, Jing. Okay. The first determination of non-being and the principle of unity of essence corresponds to Shen, to the void, generating Shen. Shen are the magical mystical entities of Chinese medicine, and they're discussed all over the place. That's here, this paper is calling it the universal self. Then this Shen, the spirit, generates pneuma, chi, or ki, the energy that sustains the world, multiplicity. So ki, or chi, from a consciousness perspective, in Katie's variation of string theory, which is string practice, because I don't do math, chi is magenta. So Jing is neon yellow, Qi is magenta. So we're in the visible realm of electromagnetic realities. We're in the measurable realms. Then the third, I don't think, oh, see, the third is the trick. Now I have to disclose a secret to you. So in inner alchemy, Shen has 27,000 meanings. So the Shen that generates the possibility of Qi is the Shen of Soma. But then there's also the Shen of the mind. Uh-oh, where's my blue? Darla, where did oh, here it is. And the Shen of the mind is also called Shen. And this is also our spirit, energy, life force. So we have Jing, Qi, and Shen. The nothing, the whatever gives birth to one, one to two, two to three, three to the myriad things. This is so specifically telling me every day that of my practice, all yin and yang is like the starting point, or putting the, like a pin in it, or noticing that something's off and like the direction of the off. But the correction is almost always going to involve something called tensegrity or a trine, depending on if it's like something you can feel or if it's just like something we're wishing for ourselves. So tensegrity structures are partially how physics contemplates all the big folds that it has to do for something like sending things out into space, and they do the origami of the folds. How that works and doesn't collapse and doesn't get stuck, those are tensegrity concepts. E equals mc squared. And then all physicists can really do is show us on fabric what happens when you put a body or like a marble on fabric, and it gets faster and faster and faster towards the black hole of, oh my gosh, nothing gets through it. But that's also like the end of what we're able to perceive. If nothing gets through, that's just us not being able to tell. Somehow the Taoists knew all of this without the math. So Mr. Capra, oh, he's probably Dr. Capra. I'm so sorry. I don't really have the same kind of playful relationship to his mind as I do with a whole bunch of other physicists. My mother, it was Turning Point was the first book of his I read. Oh, you're so welcome. Please find me on the tubes. Oh, here we go, Daoism. But I want to see if I can find, because he writes that the ancients didn't have what we have. Yeah, I know. Well, I didn't want to just like, highlight just to like, dump on Capra, but it's the physics of Taoism. It's not the Tao of physics. So he says, first of all, Taoism was before the 1st century AD. The Analects. I'm just like looking at what he says. Trends of thought, polls. Since Chinese philosophers expressed themselves in a language which was so well suited to their way of thinking, their writings and sayings could be short and inarticulate, and yet rich in suggestive images. It's clear that much of this imagery must be lost in the English translation. And he's probably reading Richard Wilhelm's translations. I know, right? What are the patterns of the cosmic way in which human beings have to recognize? The Tao is cyclical. Returning to the Tao, going far means returning. The idea was no doubt deduced from the movements of the sun and moon. It's fully the inner alchemy is fully based on the lunar cycle. I don't know how much of Chinese medicine, you want cookies, it was based on. But oh, dang it. No, I really wanted to find this for you because he's so funny. He's not rude. Before studying the parallels between physics and mysticism, we have to deal with the comparison of how we can do it. Throughout history, it's been recognized that the human mind is capable of 2 modes of consciousness. 2 modes of the human mind is capable of infinite. When you say they are 2, I think all physicists get stuck on Occam's razor. Just because it's obvious doesn't make it right. Also, why didn't they just finally give Einstein his law? Clearly, he's correct about it. Rational knowledge is derived from the experience we have with objects and events in our everyday experience. Objects and events. Shen are objects. The body is form. Thought is an object. It belongs to the realm of the intellect, whose function is to discriminate, divide, compare, measure, and categorize. Abstraction is a crucial feature. This is very abstract, but I want the realm of knowledge. The realm of knowledge, rational knowledge, is the realm of science, which measures and quantifies, classifies, and analyzes. The limitation of knowledge obtained by these methods have become increasingly apparent in modern medicine and physics. Right? Isn't that amazing? Yeah, my cat's having a meltdown. But he writes, that the ancients didn't have the same kind of measuring capabilities that we do now. And without those capabilities, and I'm like, you don't need it. Okay? So you were born on his birthday. I love it. What I'm saying about you don't need it is just because we can perceive electrons now does not mean that we have an appropriate relationship to electron as entities, as beings. It's not natural, it's not inherent to have that kind of X-ray vision, or to be able to see all the way out into the cosmos, or to know precisely how much the water on the planet weighs. Like the scale of a human without the Industrial Revolution is a very different scale. The scale of human before the Industrial Revolution was, we weren't traveling across the world. We weren't going across the ocean so much. There was another industry that involved transportation across oceans that has very much, not the way that we do with the kind of technology that we have. No, the kind of technology that we have now it has flattened perception. In a tensegrity perspective, and that's not necessarily good. So in order for you to perceive the parts of this, you need to be able to see them as they are. So you and I might know, like, oh yes, you can travel and you can do this, and like, penguins in Antarctica. But those first expeditions did not include cabin meals, catered dinners, bird's eye view. So let me see if I can find the as above, as below, because that is what blew me away. Okay, it won't. The viscera and flesh, culminant essence, released from form. Okay. Form and mortal body. So there's a passage, I think this is like a 15th century text called the Records of the Historian, 2nd century, pardon me. The release of the corpse, the Taoist method for leaving the world is releasing from the corpse, the general body, the mortal body, either living or dead. And there's Shen all through this. So the release from the form appears to have progressively faded in the 6 dynasties period. Pivot of meaning. Here we go. Pivot of meaning. Are those made accessible by Taoist practices that speak to the state of complete liberation, which is what Jung was writing about in The Secret of the Golden Flower. In some Taoist texts, the state of transcendence is defined as the one possessed by a celestial immortal who raises his form and ascends to the void. You might contemplate that as like the Buddhist idea of achieving nirvana, of reaching nirvana. And this chart that I use often to illustrate the inner experience is I just learned yesterday, also used in Dzogchen Buddhism, which is the Buddhism I know. So I guess I just truly lucked out. Ascending to heaven in broad daylight and released from the corpse. So it's not really about multidimensionality, but it's very fascinating because the relationship between these two have to do with heaven in broad daylight and the underworld. And my initiation into this was absolutely the underworld. So for those who have not attained a state sufficient to ascend to heaven during their life, nirvana, they need to go through a further period of refinement, cannot occur in the form in which they dwell. Accordingly, this type of liberation is said to consist of undergoing a metamorphosis of one's form. Cancer and stroke for me. Since the release form of the mortal body is a necessary step to continue one's purification, the refining process takes place in the great darkness. Ow. Let me, she just bit me. What do you need, my darling? Do you want some tunas? What's this? Are you wanting to play? Yes, she's wanting to play. The chart is called the Neidan 2. I'm having a stream of consciousness right now. We're talking about this, right now we're talking about dark matter, as it's described by Taoist Alchemy from like the 2nd century BC. So this is incredible. Yeah. I don't, oh, sorry, Miss Ma'am. Cat's having a meltdown, one moment. What do you need, my darling? Tell me. Do you need some tuna fish? Yes. Let's get it quickly. Yes, that's for you, baby girl. Okay. Sorry, friends. When the nip happens, that's her demanding food. Oh, thank you. My work is in. Well, I think I need to call this guy for Pregadio. So, release from the corpse. Great darkness. This is translated from a text by or about Lao Tzu, who's the philosopher who started Daoism. Great darkness is the place where those who have accumulated the Tao refine their forms. When there's no place for them to stay in the world, the worthy withdraw and, feigning death, pass through great darkness to have their images reborn again. This is obliterating selfhood without coming to an end. This is 100% how I set up my death process when I had to do cancer while I was healing a stroke. The profane are unable to accumulate good deeds, so when they die, it's truly death. They're taken away from the service of the earth. Some passages quoted earlier make a statement of having images reborn again. So there are the alchemy that I'm sharing directly, publicly, that is safe to consume is the alchemy of our organs and resonating the tissues in our body, similar to the way you would get oscillations in the brain. But the great darkness, okay, the great darkness is the no thing. It is the void. And that passage is describing, so what I did for my double non-dual death process, because I had cancer by myself and I was healing a stroke, and there was a global pandemic occurring around me. Not a very good situation. So I, being a smart little lady, I know that I'm a whole ass human. Okay, whole ass human. So what I did, this was already gone because that's my cancer. So I had one of my death processes a little bit external to me. This was the background noise of the stroke. And then, actually, that's not where I put it. I put, and then I went into the bone marrow in my right leg. And I put me. I was like, I'm just going to be an atom in my bone marrow. And then I'll let the like the stroke me exist a little bit outside. And then so now the cancer is happening, and all I have to do is just get through the cancer. So, like, whatever I am, however I contemplate, I genuinely was like, it's burning the field. If I survive, I would like to not be a supremacist. Plus, I came out sane. So it says sometimes a person temporarily dies and goes to the great darkness. We're submitted to the jurisdiction of the three offices. Every time I see three, I know I'm in the realm of the extraordinary, and that Jing, Qi, and all Shen can operate independent of any gravitational force in any dimension. So Shen contemplate them as plasmoids at this point. Contemplate them as like literal particles and waves. The particles and waves that they tell us are string theory and are very challenging to understand, which they're really not. Yin and yang. Just pretend this is like the dot in the yin or the yang. Particles and waves. Now the Shen can go do what it's doing. And if you look at it far enough away, it's going to look like it's just like hanging in space. And if you look at it even farther away, it's going to appear to disappear. Thank you. The physics of Taoism. Because again, we can only measure what we can perceive. And just because we can perceive something does not mean that we comprehend it at the scale of human, which is very much not jet airplanes and skyscrapers. That's the scale of industry of human. So the seven, so sometimes it is the three offices. His flesh becomes ashes, and his flesh. This is 100% what Katie said. I just made these statements. I've never read this text. This is incredible. Flesh becomes ashes, blood sinks into the earth, veins are dispersed, but the five viscera are still alive. The five viscera: heart, lung, liver, kidney, spleen. Five viscera: fire, metal, earth, water, wood. Five viscera: head, shoulders, hips. Five viscera: the four cardinal directions and where I am in them on earth. Five viscera relate to the connective tissue of our organs, as well as the sensory pathways from our cranial nerves to our organs, the afferent, AFF, which is not as measurable. So the bones are like jade, speaks to the experience of extraordinary. And so the number 6 in Taoist Alchemy, if you want a 666, okay, Jing Qi Shen, the number 6 maps to our 6 extraordinary organs, which are the gallbladder, the brain, the bones, the marrow, the vessels, and the uterus. Not everybody has a uterus. Taoist Alchemy says that's okay. We'll give them a place to contemplate uterus. And then once we're contemplating uterus and we're in this environment, we have even more plasma. So earlier I was mentioning how yin and yang are magnetic plasma. Here they are just as our feet are fascia. This is relativistic. This is the ox herd. This is whether or not I grow a peen, whether or not I have a peen. Okay, but it's not dependent on the totality and the realness of you and me, that Jing factor that's connected to Tao, that's connected to nothing. It's called oblivion. It's called oblivion yoga. I was oblivious to practicing oblivion yoga because the great darkness is dark matter, which is what, 85% of the observable universe? But you can't measure it. It's not bound to gravity. So cool. She's the weaver. And she is a representation of ionic plasma, negative, strong and weak bonds. This is radiative plasma, child on the star bridge. Star bridge, hello. We are made of star dust, right? How many times have we been told that by Sky Daddy Carl Sagan? Okay. So, and this child on the star bridge, this is all happening in darkness, not in shadow, in darkness. These are dark processes. Inner alchemy. I'm so sorry that Carl Jung convinced y'all that you have a shadow. Please let me show you the way, literally. You need the shadows for depth perception. So like when physicists want to show us what 4 dimensions is, they can only show it to us as a shadow, correct? Like that whole like Kleiner's bottle thing. And then there's also, you know, like the 4D cube or whatever. Well, if we can only perceive 4 dimensions through a shadow, then we can only perceive more than 4 dimensions through a shadow that looks like 4 dimensions, if we can perceive them at all. So dimensionally, 1, 2, 3, 4D. There we go, 4th state of matter. Thank you, Daoism. Places it in a very compound, complex location physically, because this is the totality of the heart. This is the muscle of the heart, as well as the pericardium that holds the heart and the fluid in that sac. And that it charges and it does energy, and it's amazing, okay? And this child here, he has a string of stars. He's fishing with stars. The Big Dipper in particular, the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. How did they know that? And also, this up here, this grain of salt, could be contemplated as like a grain of millet, but it's also the North Star. Radiative plasma, plasma of the sun, plasma of Cancer as well. Now that I've experienced it, 30 rounds of radiation was hardcore. It was through my neck, my chest, it went into my armpit. I'm still not healed. That is poison. It's poison for the purpose of letting me continue to survive, but it is consequential. Like, I don't know about you, but I did not just like say, oh, sure, yeah, I'm so happy to do aggressive chemotherapy all by myself. And then, but aggressive chemotherapy, I have always said I would never do that. And then they said, hey, Katie, it's everywhere in your body. And I was like, let's do it. Because it had not metastasized yet. Like I found it just before it became, give me all that radiation. Thank you. Here we have the Buddha representing dusty plasma. So in this text I was just reading, that there are three offices. The three offices of the great darkness occur in the belly, the heart, and the head in our body. That's the mirror. They're sometimes also called the three enclosures. In the alchemy practices, they're the three palaces. And they translate to earth, human, heaven. So earth, human, heaven. I know, it's very cool. So dusty plasma. And then Mr. Lao Tzu here is degenerate plasma. So plasma is what happens after vapor. So it's liquid or solid. He's sleeping. Solid. Oh, no, he's right here. Solid, liquid, gas, plasma. But once you get to plasma, there are many forms of plasma. There's everything that I just described. Plasma occurs in our body. Plasma, if you can hear fluorescent lights, that is a like plasma perception experience. So degenerate plasma, something happens and then it suddenly becomes solid again. So here it's described that the 7 earthly souls are camped in attendance, the 3 celestial souls hold guard, and the 3 primes visualize the breath. The great spirit is enclosed within. The great one makes a record of the spirit and then takes the record up to the immortals. And the controller of destinies takes charge of the joints. The 5 lords assist in flourishing. The 5 lords probably correspond to our 5 main organs. And the imperial lord polishes the matter. The imperial lord here is Dijin. It is very likely going to end up being some kind of variation, though, of the yellow emperor, almost always. The yellow emperor is the golden triangle, the golden Fibonacci. So the great darkness changes appearance in the 3 offices. Plasma. It's incredible. Liberation through ritual. Hold on. I guess that's it. That's it for that. But the as above heaven and as below heaven are described as pre-heaven and post-heaven. Heaven is, I think, I am not sure, I think it's beyond our atmosphere. And I say that because of the Great Wall being a structure that you can perceive from atmosphere, but not from like the moon. So those nice little Chinese people who didn't have the technology that the physicists have somehow understood enough of our planet that they built a string called the Great Wall, which operates as an alchemical firewall, but also to define the boundaries of the martial factor in all of Chinese medicine, which is marsh, like the bog, So fascinating. Yes, darling. So in the Tao of physics, let me see what he says. This is Zen. I'm just going to stick with Taoism. I'm not sure what Buddhist. If he's using Dzogchen, I could speak to that. But acknowledging the limitations and relativity of the world of rational thinking, Taoism is basically a liberation from this world and is, in this respect, a way of comparable to the ways of yoga or Vedanta in Hinduism or the Eightfold Path of the Buddha. In the context of Chinese culture, Taoist liberation meant more specifically a liberation from strict rules of convention. Taoism started as a political uprising in response to high control governing. Yes, sir. What would you like? What would you want? Are we done? Let's see some more. Logical reasoning was considered by the Taoists as part of the artificial world of man, together with social etiquette and moral standards. They were not interested in this world at all, but concentrated their attention fully on the observation of nature. This is one of the most amazing things relating to the experience of like languages that are made by women. You know how that happens sometimes in history where like women aren't allowed to read and so they like make up languages and stuff? The separation of powers in all of the martial factor, anything martial in Taoism is going to have an external effect, right? So the martial arts have a lot to do with balancing through often the Bagua, a system of 8. You'll get 7 or 8. I think that Shinto has 7. The belt system is an example. The belt system is fluid dynamics, a la Archimedes. Archimedes was one of those dead Roman guys, I guess, or Greek guys, who had a lot to do with like astrology and physics. And he wrote about spheres and cones. And the way he relates to them is by flopping. They kind of just, once he hits infinity, he lets it drop. But you have to, because you can't measure it anymore. But he also talked about this principle of if a vessel has water and you squeeze, the level will rise, which is a very common need for humans with hypermobile tissues, oddly enough. I don't think we have Archimedes in this physics, though. Let me see what he tells us about 210. He's telling us about, I'm just looking at electromagnetic spectrum. Let's see, because I have a whole mapping of this to the electromagnetic spectrum as well. The unity and interrelation between material object and its environment, which is manifest on the macroscopic scale in the general theory of relativity, that's Einstein, appears in an even more striking form in the subatomic level. That's Katie. And Taoist Alchemy and Mr. Capra, Dr. Capra. Here, the ideas of classical field theory are combined with those of quantum theory to describe the interaction between subatomic particles. Such accommodation has not yet been possible for the gravitational interaction because of the complicated mathematical form of Einstein. Yes, but you can do it practically. You can model it practically, fellas. You can model it. It's like these guys are using the same technology to contemplate the visualizations, and we're not that. Okay, we're just not. This is me being certain, but not necessarily correct. Other classical field theory, electrodynamics, has been merged. Oh, there's something called quantum electrodynamics. Shall we become a quantum electrodynamic expert today? I became a geneticist a couple weeks ago. This theory incorporates quantum theory and relativity theory. The striking new feature of quantum electrodynamics arises from the combination of two concepts, that the electromagnetic field and the photons of a particular manifestations of electronic waves. Since photons are also waves, and these waves are vibrating fields, strings. Sir, it's a new concept. So here's the words of Albert Einstein. We may regard matter as being constituted by the regions of space in which the field is extremely intense. There is no place in this new kind of physics, both for field and matter. Yes, there is, if it's form and object. Yes, there is, if it's material or immaterial. Yes, it is, if it's living or not, sentient or not. Absolutely there is, because I just took the math out and put in genetics and it all works. And that's fucked up. It truly is. So I think that part of what's happening with science is some things occurred in the 20th century to human brains that have become like the subtext of, oh, but people can just blah, blah, blah. And those three things were the lobotomy, a corpus callostomy, and a hemispherectomy. Lobotomy goes into the prefrontal cortex and messes up your sensory cortex. So that is like the whole afferent experience of receiving sensory information. A corpus callostomy is done most often with folks who experience epilepsy or other kinds of seizure disorders, which is an electromagnetic disruption in the force of the canopy of the human, which is all the neural networks of the brain. We have several neural networks in our brain. Yay. Sir, I do not know what you want. Do you want to have some healing sounds? Are you asking for? Is that what you want? He does love a singing bowl. I can't remember what I was saying, so we'll continue. Physical things and phenomena. So a phenomena, and if you're me, okay, and this is genuinely just like how my autistic brain works, that whole concept that the mind is flat, absolutely for sure here. Like if Occam's razor is a thing, I try to be as close to the edge as possible so I can just like, it's navigating the corona of the yin and the yang rather than looking at, oh, yeah, yin and yang. The quantum field is a well-defined, okay, wait, hold on. I'm very excited about this. There's no place in physics. This is Einstein. Like Einstein, Eastern mystics consider the underlying entity gravity. No, he left. Professor H, that is a very reasonable thing. They like going Outside, especially there's a big German shepherd downstairs. If the physicists and geneticists got together, I'm gearing up to email the guy Pregadio, who I have been reading so many of his translations this last year, all I've been doing in like the alchemy consistently for the last 35 years is the healing smile, healing sounds, microcosmic orbit. All I've been doing, you know him? If you know him, somebody might know Pregadio. This guy's truly one of the best translators like on the planet. He's amazing. He writes for the Golden Elixir Press, which is a great place to go for the alchemy, not just the physics. So we are beings of 3 dimension. We do not have to have, oh, Professor H, that was somebody on a different stream. So, but we don't have to exist in 3 dimensions. The third thing can be anything if we're using tensegrity. So this is probably going to be somebody who understands relativity maybe can help me with this. Tensegrity says that it happens when there are 2 fixed points and 1 that can move. 2 fixed points and 1 that can move. 2 fixed points and 1 that can move. So this tensegrity structure does not have every point connected in that way. And that's one of the reasons it is so resilient. Let's see if Professor H is correct. Oh, no, he wants to go TSIDE, but we'll do this. And I can get some supplies. Sorry, buddy. I would just let him out in the hallway, but I don't think my neighbors want to, run into him when they come and go. All right. So tensegrity, 2 points, 1 that can move. The 1 that can move can be itself kind of fixed, like a beam, right? And it can be kind of fluid, like a line. In our body, all of these lines are fascia. This all becomes connective tissue. Stuff like this is bones and joints. This movement here on this model is just to show you and me that movement can occur. The Shen are not bound by this. The Shen can go through all of this dimension. You're not going there. The Shen are magical mystical. They are plasmatic in nature, and they're used medicinally in Chinese medicine. So there's no reason we shouldn't use them medicinally for the experience of psycho-emotional pain, especially when our cognitive net is also a tensegrity structure, because our brain is tensegrity. It's a 3-factor brain. I can't remember what the book is that this guy wrote, but we have a trine nature to brain through the 3 planes of the brain, transverse, sagittal, and coronal, but also through 3 primary neural networks in our brain: the salience network, the default mode network, and the central executive network. Executive functioning is a factor of the central executive network that occurs in the realm of qi. The default mode network, we're going into a 3-body problem now. The default mode network occurs in the realm of Jing. The salience network occurs in the realm of Shen. The salience network is the neural net in our brain that's receiving the sensory information, and it says, ah, that goes into central executive or default mode. The salience network does that, not the cognitive network. And if the salience network is disrupted or threatened by, oh, I don't know, the loss of smell and taste in an entire species for however many years of that initial pandemic, some of these pathways were disrupted. These are just little school toys that had the colors that I needed. And then I'm showing you in 3 different sizes so that you can see how the 3-body problem logic always occurs in Daoism. And this is how we just account for the observer. So Jing is always the heaviest. Shen is always the lightest. Qi can go any way I need it to. So from a tensegrity concept, I try to work with these relatively fixed so that this has as much movement and freedom as possible. This is the lived, this is like the physical realm. Anything that is like the visible light spectrum, any hertz frequencies you can actually hear and perceive, the sensory motor experience, like walking into walls, having loose connective tissue. The 3-body problem in physics says if I'm looking at celestial objects, we're not going. It's not happening. I'm so sorry. 3-body problem. So what the physicists try to do is predict where objects will be like in orbit in space. And you can't do that with 3 bodies. Unless your body is a factor in the contemplation. Because Taoist alchemy is very much 100%, every single aspect of it is a 3-body problem. Jing, Qi, Shen, Yin, Yang, oblivion. Like 3-part computing. I don't know what that is, but probably, yeah. So when determining gravity, which is Jing, Taoist alchemy, so sorry, Fabrizio, this guy, I don't have any Douglas Hofstadter in front of me, but Zitterbart Escher Bach is a play on Gödel. Again, I don't do math. I totally understand your fucking science, though. It's just philosophy. And also, if you're defining objects, your information science as well. So, Jing. If I'm doing your feng shui, if I come to your home and I'm orienting your objects, which I do not do because that's the 3rd dimension, but if I am, this Jing, this earth is your location. So on one of the, so like this just got very big in front of my face for the perception of YouTube. Okay, that's how important it is that I position this Jing when I'm doing my feng shui for you. Then I'm probably looking at, from a Shen perspective, what do you have going on in your environment? Where is it situated? Which way is north in your environment? What do you have going on? La, 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 la. And then I apply a bunch of logic and reason based on 5 dimensions. And honey, it's not, do you see it not happening? Okay. I'm having a conversation with a robotics engineer later today. You're helping me. But so the first, you have to position Earth. Earth is gravity. If I'm contemplating the cosmos, Oh, thank you, Quinn Daniels. Help me become more visible. Just like leave this on in the background. The number of views I need to have on YouTube anyway. So Jing, you have to place it. If the alchemy is internal, or if I'm contemplating this is where it is. Now I can purposefully count that as part of the equation or not, because I have workarounds, because I am a motherfucking alchemist, physicist, oh, I don't know, artist. Oh, I can invoke any kind of things, but I'm not going to invoke a book. Oh, no, 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 because I need a place. I need a setting. So there are a total of 9 three-body problems. This is, somebody just asked if this is a theory or a factor. This is a framework of everything. I'm just like riffing, have just like stream of consciousness. But I do have a framework that includes Oppenheimer, Einstein, Black Holes and Baby Universes guy, Capra, Hofstadter, Schrodinger, genetics, memetics, epigenetics, and I have it gamed out to 347 million brains, BRANES, as dimensions. We're just talking about 3. And most of that, Alex, is because I'm a smart information scientist and political scientist. So I'm just using Einstein as infinity. So anytime you get to an 8 in all things Chinese, the mechanics of everything, the mechanics of divination, the mechanics of the sexagenary cycle, which is the oh, and I accidentally invented Babylonian math also. As I mean, it's just like, woo, hi. Because I just have been looking for the physics. Because if I take this to psychology, then we all have to be sane. And we are not in a sane context. It is not rational to do some of the things we're doing. So anyway, yes. So the 3-body problem. So it's Jing, Qi, and Shen, but these are also compassion, moderation, humility, and first ancestry, second ancestry, third ancestry, and transverse axis of the body, coronal axis of the body, sagittal axis of the body, but also this dimension. And how this perception occurs. And understanding that some of you seeing this are seeing this as a magnifying glass to my thumb, and some of you are seeing me upside down and backwards, like MC Escher. Also, what happens when you add perception? How does that happen? 3-body problem. Also, what about the parts that are kind of perceivable, but like not fully, but they're just more like, oh yes, it's a thought that I have, it's an experience that I have. Well, I can't see it, so it must not be real. And it's occurring through your fully perceptive experience, and you're like, no, it's actually really happening. And then they say, your numbers aren't right, blah blah blah. Okay, but it's actually happening. Oh, but the Taoists didn't have enough, ways to measure. No, because at a certain point you have to invoke the Shen, especially if you want to get to time crystals. So plasma is the 4th state of matter. Time crystals are the 12th state of matter, And time crystals are the object of, they're the result of inner alchemy, not burning wood and lighting fires. Time crystals, I have some, I just think these are pretty. So these are just invisible platonic solids, but these become, we actually generate and cultivate them in the in the midbrain conceptually. Plasma is like liquid crystals. My plasma understanding is fully based on just the definitions, categorizations, behaviors, and stuff like that, because I don't do the math. But as I currently contemplate it, we can only perceive the shadow of 4D. So any other D above 4 at most is going to be a shadow of 4D. So if there's radiative plasma, relativistic plasma, dusty, degenerate, if there's all these different kinds of plasma, could they be coming from also other higher dimensions, but we're only able to see and perceive the shadow of 4? So the refinement that we go through in this alchemy process, which you can read about here, you can also just buy my $20 crash course because it's actually practical. But the refinement of these elixirs, they're called. Sometimes they're referred to as lead and gold and cinnabar and other metals, but other times they're referred to as virtues. And still other times it's referred to as whole other beings. And still other times so the internal alchemy is very much about misdirection and nomenclature, where the law, LAW, the one law, honey, you're not going. The one law is the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. The Tao that can be named is not the Tao. Taoist inner alchemy. The Tao that can be named is not the Tao. The Taoist body. The Tao that can be named is not the Tao. 5 spirits. Why is there so much writing if the Tao that can be named is not the Tao? Because when I'm an alchemist, okay, if I'm a sneaky bitch, if I know some of the keys and the codes, which I do, many of them, it's a replacement model. Just like Feng Shui would go into your home and then help rearrange the objects in your home, so does the alchemy go into your home and start rearranging things, because it gives the neurons different places to reach. The trigrams of the Bagua, trigrams, 3, earth, heaven, human, right? Mother, father, child, South Pole, North Pole, equator. This is the part that is more mutable. These are less from a tensegrity perspective. I believe you. I do. I believe you very much. Okay, we'll just throw things for him. I brought over, so tensegrity, okay? If I tie this on a leg, look here, let me do it here so everybody can see. This is like a therapy band that you get. Oh, it's an old one. Let's see. Okay, I'll try not to break it. So we'll say that's fixed. My hand is fixed. And this is so old. It just snapped. There's probably a lesson in there, but here I have a tubing. So we'll do this one instead. So here we go. Fixed and fluid, okay? Which you could also, if you like the strange loops of Douglas Hofstadter, closed and open loops. Fixed loops are closed, open loops are fluid. Thank you. M theory. Why do you have those first three states? Just move the axis. Y'all are so rigid. Okay, so fixed, fluid. Fixed, pretend like it's on another piece of furniture. Okay, fixed, fluid. But this isn't fixed all the time. I just put it there because I needed it. This is pretty fixed all the time. So something that information science gives us, that object-oriented programming gives us, that I'm sure physics gives us, because you have to define your objects, is we can define the tensegrity. This is relativity, right? So we can define it as whatever it is, but some gravity is going to be more fixed than other gravities. That is also a factor of relativity. I don't know if that's ever been written about or if I can like have math to it because I don't do math. But from a three-body problem perspective, some of the shit cannot be changed. The fact that we are observing the system cannot be changed. If observers change the system, why are we not just accepting that and then seeing what we can do? Because this becomes a lot easier to manage. It really does. I'm so confused by why physics is looking to the ends of the universe to understand the quantum nature and doesn't also understand that the more you reach out like that, the more you're slicing in. Weak versus strong. Well, yeah, from an ion perspective. Jin, Qi, Shen. 3 dimensions. 4th dimension is this. Fourth dimension is, pardon me, the first, like one cell divides to 2, and then those divide to 4. So just as the Tao gives birth to 1, there's your zygote, 1 to 2, there's your first division, 2 to 3, 3 to the myriad things. Third division. So these numbers, every time you see a number, it's both a number and a numerology thing. So amazing. I'm not sure if, physics quantifies different forces of gravity. I guess I'm not sure if physics understands that gravity is infinity. Because the only way that anything works is if Einstein is right. So going back to my little thing here, let me build you some dimension. Honey, did you need some? Oh my goodness, did you not get the tunas? Norman, have you been rejected by the fishmonger? Come here, baby. Come here, Norman. Come here. Here it is. Okay. There you go. Darla, let Norman have some of that. Sorry, friends. He's becoming destructive, so I'm putting him in front of food that he likes. There we go. All right. Okay, Building Dimension Through Physics by Katie Z. I'm going to be using a master grid called Lo Shu, which I did not know existed until this past summer. It is based on the 200 million year old Chinese softshell turtle. Yes. Okay. 1 second. Okay. So numerology and numbers. There are a lot of ways to create 9 grids in Chinese, like cosmology and numerology and divination. This is the universal one. So everything adds up to 15 across, up and down, and diagonally. These are the first 9 dimensions. The way that I'm doing this, the first dimension is M theory, or a string. There. Now all the physicists are involved. 2D, this is Occam. This is also what a brane is, B-R-A-N-E. So a brane is what is it, like a 1D something or a singular object that contains multiple dimensions. Thank you, physics. But this is also Occam's razor. This is assumptions. This is polarity. And this as like, what would the practice be? The 2 is the practice of tensegrity. So tensegrity is Buckminster Fuller domes. Tensegrity is also a design principle having to do with consciousness. That's how I understand it. 3 is negentropy. It's negative entropy. So negentropy is what happens when dynamic systems become more complex rather than chaotic or entropic, like succumbing to gravity. There is a whole cycle. I know Buckminster Fuller didn't, but he didn't create the concept. Indigenous humans did. All indigenous architecture and all indigenous geometries, as I'm able to perceive, as I have been given direct access to, which is not a lot, but all of them that I have been, all operate through tensegrity. The thing I love about tensegrity is it also brings in the concept of dynamic, right? So what is the power dynamic? Not who do I have power over? What kind of power? Who has the power? Okay, social, whatever. 3 is negentropy, very much. Negentropy maps to sexagenary. To the sexagenary cycle. It is a mathematical thing, which I totally understand. So it must be geometry or music. I, from a music perspective, placed the circle of fifths here. But the sexagenary cycle in Chinese medicine has to do with genetics. Speaking of our genome being dynamic, this has to do with genetics and with how the individual human person is contemplated in the totality of. Okay, but because this is negentropy, this also at 3 is Katie trumping the 3 laws of thermodynamics, because I cannot have magical mystical physics. I cannot have magical mystical if everything already has to have been. I need a way to have something from nothing. And you get this look because I asked Chad. I usually am with visual physics bots. I don't just like use GBTs. So I was asking Chad, I'm like, tell me about these 3 laws of thermodynamics, because I don't understand how because I need, this is all for me, this is all about how water behaves. And I was like, how do you just like generate, like, how can I generate a wave without a thing? And they go, oh, physics says the 0th law of thermodynamics. And I was like, the 0th law? Please tell me more. Negentropy, entropy at absolute 0. You have to have it. So that made Katie's model actually fucking work. Aqua Viva, sexagenary cycle, negentropy. 4Z, 4D is biotensegrity. Okay, so tensegrity is 2D, 4D is biotensegrity. Living tissue, whole ass human, bound to the gravity of Earth. It also works alchemically and logically. And I should say to the planet, the alchemy came first. Okay, I've just been learning genetics and a little bit more about all your strings and things, so I can show you how your physics maps onto it. Biotensegrity is Jing. Tensegrity is Shen, because it's more of an idea or of a concept. So biotensegrity says, again, once I hit 5D, once I need to have a location beyond the 4 cardinal directions, that goes somewhere. So in this divination, it goes on the number 5. And this is conveniently on the ground. It's the 4 cardinal directions. Thank you. 5D, 4 cardinal directions. But what you don't know is that the directions are not cardinal for the rest of the numbers on this chart. So I can go into any of these other dimensions and never once have to worry about where gravity is. Work around Einstein. Thank you, Katie. 6. 6s and 7s. I could never do my 6s and 7s in math. And when I was like, oh, now I know why. 6 is recursion. Swimming is flying. Truth is not a place. Oh my goodness, I don't know. 6 is, I'm just going to say recursion. But it's recursion in the sense of how am I perceiving land specifically? So back to our friend Archimedes. In the 6th grade, one Katie Zitterbart did create the Kaz theorem. Because I just needed something in geometry class, and that worked better. And I have since come to learn that the Kaz theorem was me intuiting the golden triangle. So the number 6 or 6D is carbon, essentially. It's us being carbon-based life forms, and how does carbon behave? Okay, but the physicist that goes here is Oppenheimer, because we can mess it up. Okay, the physicist that goes here is Einstein. We have to keep them away from each other if I want this to actually potentially be a 0-point energy model, because I might have a whole bunch of Python tables ready to go. I don't know. I was a Lisp programmer back in the 80s. Haven't written code in a long time. So, but sixes are, it's recursion. It's flip-flopping. It is the vortices of how the storms go on the North and South Pole. Like you could contemplate that. You could contemplate it as the toroidal experience, okay? But it's hard to measure because there's stuff going on. We're going to get a lot of like infinities and fractals here. So once we get to 7, 7 is homeostasis. So 3 is negentropy. 7 is homeostasis. That means 7 is closed loops. So the number 3 are open loops. 7 are closed loops, but closed loops can be closed in any number of ways, can't they? Especially the coil things that occur in M theory. I can't remember the heteroic and the heterotonic or whatever. That's very cool. If there's 1, there's 9 degrees. If you're implying Yahoo, I even love that even more because I actually was very early at Yahoo. So homeostasis. This is contrary and parallel scales on the piano, but also contrary and parallel processing in computers, as well as contrary and parallel play. It's flipping Einstein and Oppenheimer taking walks in the garden and not understanding that what they were experiencing was actually this like flow between them through the movement. If I'm not wrong, Einstein didn't have to go into the office. He liked walking in the garden. 8 is Einstein. 8 is genetics. 8 is Gödel in the Gödel-Escher-Bach world. So 8 is the Bagua. And this will just be my Bagua for now. 8 is the Bagua. Anytime you hit an 8, anytime we hit an 8, we have to go back to the beginning. This is actually how Feng Shui works, because now we need to place Earth. We need to determine where gravity is going to be. So Einstein, rather than Gödel, or Zitterbart, because I'm an impossible equation, and so I just put myself there. 9. So we're at 9 dimensions. 9 dimensions is the pinnacle of all of this, and my word for it is shentegrity. It's the integrity, the tensegrity of the integrity of all the things. 9. Okay, it's the last single number I can have. The entity is Ming Po. She's the goddess of oblivion. I kid you not. And this corresponds to our umbilical cord. I just wrote a Substack about the umbilical cord being the string of humanity. Because what happens when we get back to this 5D is this very important word that everybody should be contemplating all the time, and we're not, and I never even knew it existed till the summer. And that word is that word. Wait, I want to be dramatic. Being dramatic with my flips. Okay, hold on. I'm not. What's the word? Here we go. Homeoresis. Homeoresis, stability in dynamic systems. It's not being researched. It occurs in our neuro experience at the, like right where psychiatry and neuroscience decide not to get involved. Homeoresis is chi. Negentropy is Jing. And homeostasis is Shen. So this is the stack. Homeostasis on top, homeoresis in the middle, negentropy on the bottom. This seems very, I don't know, physics to me. From the zeroth law. So the creates one creates two creates three create the myriad things. Again, we don't ever need more than 3 Ds. But the Ds don't have to be numbers, my friends, Mr. Physics humans. My goodness me, they can be strings themselves. Oh, okay. I'm starting to peter out. It's been over an hour and a half. Also, I would just like the logic complaint. Why is this not the shape for a human? Plato. It's the most obvious one for me to get to 4. Okay, I have to stand up or like be able to move in the world as a human in order to be 3 dimensions. Why did he make it be the octa, deca, whatever the hedron, which makes sense from a carbon molecule perspective, but from a practical perspective, if 3 points make a plane, 4 points is going to give me volume, dimension. And then if I'm a whole ass human needing to like exist in the world and I'm just starting to do things like make housing, aren't I just going to use tensegrity? Aren't I just going to notice how the willow branches help each other stay up in my yurts and my... Well, the Merkaba, okay, is 2 of these together. This occurs, these shapes occur in nature. They don't occur this way, but this is the fractal of human, by the way. We're a fractal of this. So here's 2 of these pyramids together, okay? That I need machinery for. Okay, and I have a rule that this is just a pyramid and this is a Merkaba. But a Merkaba is 2 pyramids. It's also 1 tensegrity structure. Great. Now, Katie says, if it works in 1 dimension, it has to work in all the ones. And so I say, well, how do I get one in my head? Oh, I must only understand the Merkaba in my head through oscillations. Because we are not this, but we are this. Oh, I'm so happy that you're here. So this, by the way, is a time crystal in physics. I never knew that. I thought I was just hanging out in the Crystal Palace and keeping my midbrain happy after it fully collapsed. My stroke was in my midbrain. I should have died. But see, I know how to navigate nothing. I know what, I mean, I didn't understand that the darkness and the whatever. I should have, because I understand enough of the physics. The no thing, the dark matter of a dimensional being is the experience of just suspension. And this is why our friend Douglas Hofstadter, my boyfriend, who I haven't met yet, see, but I want to, this is why he used Johann Sebastian Bach for the music in his book, Gödel Escher Bach. He used Bach, he could have used anybody. There were so many amazing composers. He used Bach because of the fugue. Because now we go into a concept called a fugue state. Now, nice little Earth Daddy Douglas Hofstadter, Sky Daddy is Carl Sagan, of course. Douglas Hofstadter gives us, just with one concept, a particle and a wave, or a string, or a seemingly like just how did it come out of nowhere? But if you cannot perceive whatever's holding something, whatever's giving it the relationship to gravity so that you can perceive it, isn't that when they say like magic and technology and stuff? So the fugue, so this suspended animation kind of thing is the fifth dimension or the seventh dimension in Taoist alchemy. Okay, that also turns into the alchemy symbol of the square, the circle, the triangle. But those are all dimensional objects. So the circle is a cone as well as the base of a circle, as well as the base of a can, as well as a sphere that you only perceive as a circle so far. It's anything that's circle. And then it's also anything that results in infinities. The square is all parallelograms, not just squares, right? So the Lo Shu divination is a perfect square, but there are parallelograms as well. And those can be cubic. They can look this way. You can be looking at, that's a parallelogram, but it's really, now it's a triangle, right? If it was clear, it would be a prism. It would make light do things. But there's the triangle. This is a variation of a four-sided object. So is, where are my cubes? I have cubes to shove in front of your face, but I think you understand what I'm saying. So all the square in the alchemy symbol, the Western alchemy symbol, is all things quadrilateral in nature. That includes cubes. It's all already there. Okay, we don't have to make it all the time. Katie has to go do things like take my cats outside. And also, if you know this guy, so I'm going to reach out to Capra to, there's a physicist at Princeton who won a Nobel Prize for multidimensions, and he's very old. So I feel like he might talk to me just because I'm like a young whippersnapper, and I'm strange and appealing, but I'm also super autistic. But he's probably fine with autism in humans because he's in theoretical physics. Here's nuclear. The first step towards understanding of nuclear structure was the discovery of the neutron as the second constituent of the nucleus, a particle which has roughly the same mass as the proton. Cool. Tao of physics. He writes for like the general public. His book, The Turning Point, is the one that like turned me on to him. I forgot that he wrote this. I don't think that I ever read it. After I read Gödel Escher Bach, I was like, okay, I'm kind of just done with all these books. Yeah, see, he's reading Richard Wilhelm. So he's using a European translation. He's not using a native translation. And so the commentary that he's reading about the texts that he's using is not native. That's going to impact and influence how everything is perceived. In the Richard Wilhelm translation of The Secret of the Golden Flower, which is a later text, Mr. Freud says, or not Mr. Freud, Mr. Carl Jung, this entails the risk that the unique treasure will be swallowed by still another special science. Nonetheless, anyone seeking to minimize the merits of Western science and scholarship. And then he says that women and the Chinese wouldn't have been able to do the alchemy, that there's no way they could do it. Hello. Lao Tzu says the decision must be carried out with a collected heart and not seeking success. Success will come in of itself. The first period of release, there are chiefly two mistakes: indolence and distraction. And then Mr. Carl Jung says, oh, I'm just going to turn it into the anima and animus and give you the shadow as something subconscious, unconscious needs to be revealed. No, this is physics. You need the shadows to perceive dimension, just like from a practical perspective, but also literally to perceive more than 3 dimensions. Children, you don't understand the nature of movement. Oh, wait, no, that's actually the thing. He says, this is Jung. It's sorry, I'm trying. It's better for Western man if at the start he does not know too much about the secret insights. It would be a case of right means in the hands of the wrong man. He decided for the world, Carl Jung did, that he knew better. The Daoism is Gestalt in nature. It's not Jungian in nature. Jung is a supremacist, straight up. Doesn't matter why he broke with Freud. All these, they were friends with the guy who invented the word propaganda. And then this becomes very popular. Secret of the Golden Flower. And this has been recommended to me so many times. And I'm like, do you read people don't read the commentary. They just read the translation. He talks about bipolar tensions and hysteria. The Tao governs man just as it does individual. Man is a microcosm and not to be separated. That's true. And then he says, but you can't handle it, so I'm going to do that for you. I never liked him. My mother put him in front of me when I was very young. Man and his symbols. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. It's not practical. The unconscious is the pre-material or post-material or perception. This is Jing. This is that, like, the densest gravity. This is gravity of Earth. The gravity of Saturn is not as dense to us. It might be more dense to Saturn, but also pretty sure the ancients weren't able to measure atmosphere that far away. They were able to measure it far enough that you can see the Great Wall from space. Okay. Thank you all for coming to my TED Talk. So happy we're here. I will have goals for myself soon. I'm uploading more long-form content on YouTube and Substack. And the long-form content is either just like replays of these kinds of lives where we're just like talking about a bunch of stuff, and practical somatics, practical things, because this all turns into, let's just stop trying to regulate everything. Okay. If there's a little bit of uncertainty with these great minds of physics, truly, I don't do math because I don't have to. These guys are amazing at the math. Okay. Girl physics is based on the uterus. Girl physics is based on the totality of the brain as it grows from the navel, not from the skull. It's embryonic. It is not evolutionary in nature. Girl physics turns into, okay, it turns into art. Put on, oh, look, pretty. They made art. It turns into magical mysticals. Because like the part of you that comprehends and understands and stuff, okay, like again, you have no understanding of the size of the planet just because you can see it. When astronauts go up into space and they see the Earth, they know so much. They understand the density of the planet, the dimensionality of just how weather happens, how the tides go. They understand it, and then they go up and they see it. They understand it. We see it and go, wow, that's really cool. Okay, that is not a planetary wow. A planetary wow is, holy shit, I'm aware of the celestial body that is the whole planet. That's where the awe is. And on a practical level, KZ here was doing information design and user experience design and information architecture from the point of ethics when we built the first World Wide Web, when we built the first matrix, which guess what, looked a lot like this. This is a Buckminster Fuller thing. This is the I Ching. And obviously I write on my books. You don't have to write on my stuff. But the laying of the cables on the planet the first time for fiber optics, okay, that was a big deal. I had a T1 in my living room in the mid-1990s. That's how much bandwidth I had to the internet, which is massive, okay? Not because I had it. My roommate was laying the cables on the planet, and they did that with Buckminster Fuller logic. But I was learning Buckminster Fuller logic because just the way that you would lay the cables on the planet, so do I lay and layer your consciousness with how I guide your eyes, how I guide your ears, and what behaviors I'm looking for on the end of that, which for me, my position in all of that was one of the world's first humans to do e-commerce at the level of the transaction, like the bank and the entity and the search and everything. And that was not algorithmically together at the time. I had to create the algorithms. And I remember the engineers would get so freaked out, right? Oh, we can't do that. So, like I made so many promises to Visa in front of the founders of Yahoo. Oh yeah, we can totally do that. No problem. And they're freaking out. And I was like, we don't have to worry about everybody's original things. We'll just make a separate thing and then put them all together in it. And they were like, oh yeah, we can do that. I'm like, yeah, because we'll just create a new taxonomy. And then it's like, oh, well, how does this happen? Well, then we're going to need to guide the eyes a different way. And we're going to have to, but all of those contemplations are based on tensegrity, not based on these, keywords, get people to act, which is why I don't understand SEO at all. But yes, so I understand how big the planet is in a similar way to an astronaut from a consciousness, information design, and infinite growth. Another friend of mine during that time was using Buckminster Fuller logic to determine how he would position all of the pathways of like one of the world's first large email arrays to do like emails. because that didn't exist. I had no full understanding of how much physics was involved in that, because I don't do math. So I guess anytime they talked about math, I just like did something else. But at the time, I was also being trained by the inventor of the CD-ROM in digital media theory specific to split consciousness and the idea of leaving digital trace in the mind that would snag a thought and accidentally turn it right and, like into supremacy rather than turning it long and low and into an organic experience. So data, I'm sure it is still today, but it was always like, for me, how close can we get it to dirt? How close can it get to dirt? And then I was apparently using zoology. I didn't even understand that until recently. Very exciting. Okay. But yes, plasma is so all the way through Taoist alchemy. It is amazing. Just incredible. And this golden elixir, the secret of the golden flower, is not a secret. We're supposed to show you how to navigate these once we know the pathways. We're supposed to show you. So like a long rambling live stream is a nice little stream of consciousness, but also I have practical things like the $20, there's a crash course, and then I'm gearing up to do some more like actual services now that my brain is healed enough from my stroke in 2019 and cancer in 2020 and then long COVID in 2022. It's been a fun 5 years. All right. So if it's possible for me to schedule lives on YouTube and have it like be like I'm going to do a thing on YouTube, I'm definitely going to do that. You on the other place, you need to find me, please. Come find me over on the tubes. And yeah, live long and prosper and get this book. He also just published one called The System's View of Life, which is really good as well. He wrote that with someone else. I was like, oh, I think I recognize this writer. Yeah. Okay. Bye. Thank you all. Please find me on tubes. Okay.